Did you know that statistically the worst plant in the entire game actually comes from the newest map, Abyss? It's not surprising to hear that after the attackers plant the spike, their chances of winning the round increase significantly, in some cases even going up to nearly 77%. But when planting here, your chances of winning the round actually instantly drop down to just 60% on average. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but that's nearly a 20% swing, which is absolutely absurd. Today, we have statistics on all of the best and worst plant locations on every single map, and exactly where you should be planting the spike to give your team the best odds of winning. And to kick things off, we're going to be heading straight to Haven. On average, Haven A site has a 73.76% win rate on attacking compared to the other sites after the spike is planted. This is because once you have an effective control of the site, it's nearly impossible to make it out of spawn. However, this doesn't mean that you can just plant it anywhere on a site and expect an easy-peasy win. It might not surprise you to hear that the best plant location on Haven by far is going to be by this ammo box near Hell. Now, just by knowing this location, you might already get a grasp of why it's so effective. Now, in the best case scenario, your team gets to take full control of the site and plant on that spot. Let's say you have one controlling space on Heaven, one in Hell holding a crossfire with another on Graffiti, one from Sewers, and one from Long. Imagine how difficult it's going to be to retake such a setup, and that's really just with guns and positioning alone. Even if you're missing a teammate or two due to early casualties, there are still multiple angles to worry about given how open that plant spot is. This plant is definitely a better location than the accustomed default plant in front of the large box in the middle. Furthermore, if you want to use post-plant lineups but aren't exactly a lineup Larry, well, you can get by with just make-do ones. Since the plant area is near the corner, you can aim it by the wall so that it bounces right on the spike or directly on the corner's floor. This can be done from all the mentioned angles you can hold from. Now, as for the worst spot, B site absolutely takes the cake on the right side of Generator. In hindsight, there's really only one viable location outside of the site to hold from, and that's from A Link. However, even if A Link doesn't have a lot of cover you can use, it's still possible to hold from the cubby on B main or back site if you hide behind the gong. But that's only assuming they don't clear you there. In the end, your team needs to actively keep site control until there's no time or keep hunting for kills. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely difficult to play post-plant. Try to avoid this plant spot as much as you can unless you have kind of a high-risk, high-reward play in mind. Perhaps a Yoru Flash or Omen near site and TP combo, but then again, this is highly situational, so just use it with a whole lot of caution. Next up is our most recently added map, Abyss. Now, given how young this map still is in Valorant, a lot of us are probably still just dreading this map's trickiness, especially with the falling to death mechanics. But that thing we hate the most in this map is exactly what we really need to utilize for winning more attacking rounds. Now, that being said, planting on this spot at the bridge on A site is proven to be the best plant on the entire map, and here are 3 good reasons why. Number 1, you can easily see the spike from CT, Heaven, and both sides of A main. Number 2, you're going to have the advantage against the diffuser when taking gunfights since they have little space for repositioning or counter-strafing. And number 3, with Astra as a popular pick in this map, pulling the diffuser off the spike and into the Abyss is not only effective, but also absolutely fun to do. Now, if that's not enough, there are a lot of post-plant lineups you can use from agents like Killjoy, Viper, Gecko, and KO, all of which are pretty viable agents on Abyss. Another plan you can add to your arsenal, though, when playing post-plant on this spot, is having one of your teammates wrap around CT or Heaven through mid-vents. Just try to keep your enemies from diffusing for a few seconds to give time to your late flanker. Now, for the statistically worst spot on Abyss, we have this backside plant on B near Danger. If you've seen enough pro player games on Abyss or have played this map a lot, you would know how common this plant spot can be. And yes, even though it's very much possible to cook up plays and win rounds due to this plant, it actually yields the lowest win rate at 60.26%. Now, if you're wondering why it's so common despite having a low win rate, it's mainly because it's the safest spot to plant on if you don't have a lot of controlled space on site. However, you're only going to get the chance to defend this spot from the danger angle in B main. The spike can't be seen from Link, Heaven, Window, nor B main. If you're watching from any of these angles, you're going to need to get close before you can see the diffuser, risking a potential half diffuse. That's why if you're playing B, just try to get the spike planted on default, or better yet, the opposite end on the right near the box on B Link instead. These spots are going to give you more options to play time with or overwhelm the enemy. Remember, this video is about squeezing out every single little advantage that you can get in ranked to help you climb, and while something as simple as a plant location can easily increase your win rate, there are also dozens of other factors that can cause you to skyrocket in rank as well. Aim, movement, agent knowledge. That's what we specialize in over at SkillCapped. Our courses are designed to take players like you from zero to hero in as little as just a few short weeks, guaranteed or your money back. We figured out how to make the game stupid simple so that literally any one of you can frag out and hit immortal. Now, the reason we're able to do this is because on top of our world-class courses, we also provide users a direct line of feedback with our coaches on Discord so that they can get personalized feedback and VOD reviews directed at the exact issues they are struggling with. So, if you're wondering what rank you could achieve in just a few short weeks, head on over to SkillCapped and check out our free rank calculator. And other than that, let's get into the other maps. Next, we have Split, and boy did I miss this map. While there are no significant changes to the map, the constant plant spots remain the same. And to no surprise, the best plant spot goes to the default open plant on B site. Securing the spike in this spot allows your team to hold from B main, Heaven, and Alley, and on top of that, you have access to multiple paths should you decide to reposition or do a late flank. After planting, you can head to B main to wrap around mid to Heaven and vice versa, or easily transfer from Heaven to Alley. So long as you have the right timing, the right teammates, or utilities to buy time for you, the guessing game never ends with the enemy. If you're using Omen or Viper, you can also set up a nasty one-way for the diffuser. Just aim your smokes towards the horizontal green sign right above the plant spot. You and your teams can take advantage of this one-way from all of the mentioned post-plant spots, and you can also easily molly the location with minimal risks from B main and Heaven. Now, for the least favored plant spot, we have the area behind the digital box on A site. This plant spot is often a result of a rush to site without taking control of CT and Heaven. Now, for one thing, there's no open angle to guard this spot from. You literally have to make your way up close if you get a clear vision. And while it is true that the digital box is wallbangable, it's best not to rely on this unless you have godly wallbanging skills. Either way, winning attacking round on A is much more doable if you plant in an open spot like A1. At least this plant can be seen from Heaven and A main though. Additionally, Omen can do a one-way smoke on this tall plant box that you can utilize from both angles. So, on Ascent, it's been statistically proven that the B2 plant spot often does yield the best results when it comes to winning attacking rounds. There's not a whole lot of open angles to work with, but this corner on B site is actually the most accessible spot. You can easily peek from Boathouse, you're going to see the enemy's body protruding from stairs, and you're going to have a tight angle on lanes as well. And as for post-plant viability, given that KJ is an absolute must-have in this map, you can place that sneaky swarm grenade on the farthest right of lanes to buy time or pick off the diffuser. Mollies are also easy to deploy at a safe distance here, whether you're playing from stairs or B main. If you have good spray control and crosshair placement, you can ping the spike and spray away from behind the switch or triple box. If you have a Sova on the team, who's another must-have agent on this map as well, you can utilize his recon dart and drone to spam a little bit easier. Now for the worst spot. We won't be wandering far off, as it's also found on B site, right behind the triple box. You might be familiar with this plant, and I'll bet $100 you found yourself planting the spike here multiple times before. Understandably, it is a safe default plant, but it also makes holding post-plant angles a little bit more difficult. For instance, you need to head to almost the far end of lanes to at least see the diffuser. Same goes with the stairs angle, but you can spam from this area as a little consolation here. The best angle to hold this plant spot from is on Boathouse, provided that they don't push you in that area, which is often pretty unlikely. Now, if you really have to plant in this area, I definitely recommend saving a utility or two that can easily deny the diffuse. If you know a lineup or two, then that would also increase your chances just a little bit more. Otherwise, try to avoid this spot as much as you can. Another map we've been waiting to come back to for too long is Pearl, and luckily, it's just in time for us to learn where to plant and where not to plant. In terms of general success rate, B site reigns a little bit higher at 73.72% on attacking than A site, which has 68.28%. And the best spot to plant in B is right on this tall box towards the left of the site. This area is completely visible and easy to hold from the farthest ends of B ramp. If you want more options in post-plant, you can also consider planting the spike in the open. Doing so is going to give you additional angles to hold from places such as CT, Heaven, and B-Link. Now, with the amount of angles to be wary about here, the enemy's going to have a very slim chance at expecting a late flank or reposition from these angles. And in most cases, they're going to be focused on anticipating peaks from B-Ramp since it's planted from that area. If the enemy team does decide to smoke the spike off, you can easily throw make-do mollies by aiming toward the corner of the box and the wall. Heading over to the A site, A1 holds the lowest win rate for attacking on Pearl. Now, despite this, it's actually a pretty common spot to plant on in the lower elos, basically until you get up to plat elo. If you try to search up lineups on Pearl, you're likely going to come across multiple lineups for this area. However, what makes it difficult to defend is the limited number of angles you can hold this area from. In most cases, you only have a clear vision of this plant spot from A main, and you're going to have to expose yourself to multiple angles just to peek it. You're also going to have a hard time holding from art unless you push wide into sight or adjust the plant forward so the middle box won't block your vision. But doing that's going to move the spike away from most of the lineup molly's area of effect. Now, if you don't have a trusty molly lineup for this spot, I suggest to just plant on A2 to make the diffuser a bit more exposed to multiple angles. Next up, we have Bind, and if you haven't heard already, a lot of players seem to dread this map and often experience red carpets on their match histories whenever they play it. Now, let's try to erase that mentality here and start thinking a little bit strategically, or maybe statistically. On Bind, there's a significant difference in win rate between the A and B sites, and the site that comes on top is B, which to me really isn't that surprising at all. Silver to plat elo players often avoid B due to the likelihood of encountering a Cypher, a KJ, or whichever Sentinel has a setup there. But in reality, successfully taking B site offers great rewards because of how difficult it can be to retake. B3 is without a doubt the best spot to plant on with a success rate of 74.67%. And as a bonus little trick here, I'm just going to show you how to maximize this plant spot. Once your team successfully takes space on site, head towards the left area on this spot in front of tube. Next, face a little to the right and plant the spike. Now, as you can see, instead of being placed on the ground, the spike actually goes on the top edge of tube. With such an open plant, there's so many angles the diffuser has to worry about, allowing your team to play post-plant with absolute ease. Whether you're playing from elbow, from hookah, or B-long, you're going to have a clear and wide vision on the diffuser. Now imagine that with post-plant mollies and traps, and you got yourself a near impossible to win retake. Now for the worst spot on bind, we have the triple box plant for baths on A. Now we all know this can still bring winnable situations, but it's often not really ideal. The most open angle you can peek this from is baths, and sometimes you have to worry about the late flanks from short or the teleporter. Our only consolation for this plant is that the triple box is fully wallbangable, but in tense and chaotic situations, it's really easy to miss your shots when wallbanging. Plus, there's a lot of space for the diffuser to hide in, which makes it more difficult to accurately wallbang. You'd be better off planting the spike on A2 so you can at least have a number of options to play your post-plant strategy. Finally, to cap things off, we're going to be taking a look at the best and worst plant spots on Sunset. Now, we've seen a lot of epic Sunset moments throughout this year's VCT, but did you know that it's generally more difficult to win post plants on attacking in this map compared to others? In total, the attacking win rate for A is at 69.76%, while B stands at 68.12%. That's why it's sometimes better to call for a full retake rather than letting your team dwindle in numbers before the spike even gets planted. Nevertheless though, planting on B3 definitely going to be your best bet. This spot allows you to peek safely from both sides of B main, market, and the right side of back site. If you're coming from Boba, you might have a hard time closing the gap without making a sound, so use this angle with a little bit of caution. Now, due to the distance, enemies might get the spike to half, peek you while you're caught off guard, and get the defuse. The best case scenario for a post-plant setup on this spot is having 2 people holding from B main, 2 from market, and 1 who can late lurk or reposition to Boba. But if your team is down in numbers, having at least 1 in each area should definitely suffice. Just be sure to peek together so they're going to be confused about who to look at first. Now for the worst spot in Sunset, we're going to head over to A, right behind this small box on site. Now sadly, this is a pretty common spot to plant on because it's considered safe for the planter. However, for the rest of your team playing post-plant, it's not that safe at all. For you and your team's sake, avoid planting this spot as much as possible. For starters, there's no active angle you can use to hold this area. You literally have to push them up close to stop the enemy from defusing, which could allow them to get the jump on you. If you don't have any mollies or damage-dealing utilities, they can safely stick the defuse from this angle, giving them an easy win. The only time you should use this plant spot is when you absolutely don't have any other choice.
All right, though, guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and we think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like a gym membership guaranteeing you that you're gonna get ripped. Your local gym would probably go bust if they offered you that. But not us, because we've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into over 50 courses. No one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to every question you ask. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you're serious about improving your game. So that's going to be all for this one today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.